I'll let you fire away there, Bala. Thank you very much.
Before we start, if anybody has a question about anything that Bala's talking about, put it on the chat, and we can pick them up whenever we can.
I don't know. That is new. That is new. I don't know.
And just one thing while everybody is here, there was a hint last week that the tea interval could be changed or could be reduced. That is not so. The tea interval remains at 30 minutes. You probably heard that this meeting is being recorded. So over to you, Bala, and thanks very much to everybody who attended.
Good evening, everyone. As Joe just said, that meeting is being recorded. So if you don't want your face to come on the thing, you can switch your cameras off. Any questions, as I said, it'll be better if you put it on the chat, and we'll take it either at the end of this presentation, or if there's a pause or something. If there's something really important, we'll take it right at that moment. We'll just, if you think there's something important enough, just interrupt me when I'm speaking, and we'll try to answer the question then there. Now, today's presentation is not going to talk about Law 42 in detail. We're not going to go through the Law 42 by itself. What we'll attempt to do is to walk through the process of how you implement Law 42. It is expected that you guys read Law 42 yourself. Now, Law 42, as you know, is just came in about 2 years ago in 2019. It was added into the laws in 2019, and the importance of it cannot be understated. What it is not it is not a red card or yellow card type of a law. That's one thing you need to get clear in the very first instance. Okay, you don't give red cards or yellow cards like you do in some other sports, but this is a thing. And as I said, you can't understate the importance of this law. LBW law in your law book is 1 page, and Law 42 is about 10 pages long. So it is covered in huge detail in the law book. So it is advisable to go through the law and go through the nuances and the things that are required. The tiny bits of the nuances and everything that is in the law. But what we're going to do today, as I said, is we're going to walk through the process of how to implement this law and try to understand what happens if things go bad in a match. So starting away, Law 42, players conduct. While I just get my mouse and everything sorted out. The process itself. If a player does something that either umpire thinks is unacceptable, the umpires are required to act. And they should follow a process to ensure that they act as the law requires them to. And in the next few slides, we'll learn this law, learn the process. To start the process, a player will have to do something wrong. He has to have done something that you think is unacceptable. So that's the first step. If you think a player has done something that's unacceptable, the process starts. What's the first step? Call the dead ball as soon as possible. Usually what you'll do is you'll call it immediately. But if the non-offending team is going to be disadvantaged, the umpire should wait until the ball becomes dead. Now, for example, a batsman may have played a ball towards the boundary, and fielder says something unacceptable, abuses him or something like that. You have to wait for the ball to go to the boundary and die automatically. You don't want to deprive the batting side of the boundary by calling a dead ball too early. So wait for wait for the things, the ball to die, and wait for such that the non-offending side is not disadvantaged by the call of dead ball. Once the ball is dead, you need to take control of the ball immediately. Now, this is a step that you do for almost all the dead ball situations. When you're if you're going to stop the game and you've got to go talk with your colleague for any reason, you always take control of the ball. You need to make sure that the ball is not tampered with when you're not when you're not looking at the ball itself. You need to take control of the ball as soon as you call dead ball. You then get together with your colleague and you agree that severity, you decide on the severity of the unacceptable behavior that has happened. And that severities come into 4 different levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Now, the law requires you to confer. Both umpires should talk together as a team when you're handling this process. The umpire who saw the incident and initiated the process should tell the other umpire what he saw and heard. Together, you must both agree on whether this constitutes an unacceptable behavior and does it deserve further action. If it does deserve further action, then you decide what level the incident should be classified as. And you should always record your conversation, including the names of all the players involved, the time that the event occurred, the number of overs and the number of balls bowled, and also what action you agreed upon at that time. Record it in your little black book or a notepad or whatever you have in your hand at that time. It's vitally important you do that. Is everything clear so far? Good. So now, what's level 1? The law specifies these instances to be decided as level 1 offenses. Like they include willfully mistreating any part of the cricket ground, equipment, or implement used in the match, showing dissent at an umpire's decision by word or action, using language that is in circumstances is obscene, offensive, or insulting, making an obscene gesture, appealing excessively, advancing towards an umpire in an aggressive manner when appealing. So these are what's mentioned specifically in the law. What law also states that you could decide any other action to be a level 1 offense. If you think as a group, as a team, you think that there's some other action which is apart from these that are on the screen. If you think that's a level 1 offense, you could put it as a level 1. You could put it as a level 1 offense. Okay. Just an example of a level 1 offense. Now, all the videos I've tried to get it from the same age time period, and they're pretty decent. Indications of what they're pretty decent reflections of each level. So the level 1 itself. Okay. Did I share with the sound? Oh, it's okay. It's not required. But watch the batsman. What he's doing is showing dissent at the showing dissent by words at the decision given by the umpire. Now, if you have the sound on, this is the time when you would see that he was actually abusing the umpire for the decision. So if this is an example of a level 1 offense. Now, Level 2 offense is slightly more serious. Things start getting serious. Now, the law specifically mentions showing this serious dissent or an umpire's decision by word or action, and we'll see that again in the video we see. You saw the dissent in the first instance. Now we'll see a video which will show us the dissent in the second instance, and we'll see the slight difference between the two. But it's something that you have to be on the ground, and it's your decision on the ground to say whether it was just ordinary dissent or it is serious dissent. Okay. Making inappropriate and deliberate physical contact with another player, throwing the ball at a player, umpire, or any other person in an inappropriate or dangerous manner. This usually happens when the bowler picks up the ball and chucks it back at the batsman, when there was no requirement of him to do it. So that's a level 2 offense. Using language or gesture to another player, umpire, team official, or spectator that in circumstances is obscene or seriously insulting, of a seriously insulting nature. So again, watch the video and see the difference between the first one and the second one. And you will see what I mean by where the level 1, the dissent moves from level 1 to level 2. There. The bowler, when he saw that the umpire didn't give the decision, went on and kicked the stumps down. And that, in my opinion, at least, is serious dissent of the umpire's decision. And that then becomes, it moves into the level 2 territory from the level 1 territory. But again, it's something that you have to agree with your colleague on the ground. Level 3, things get more serious now. Intimidating an umpire by language or gesture, threatening to assault a player, or any other person except an umpire. Now, what do you mean by intimidating an umpire? Or how would you say that a player, how do you feel intimidated? It's very simple. I mean, if he is coming into my personal space, like Mike Gatting is there doing now, forget about the circumstances of that incident. The fact is that Mike Gatting is in Shakur Rana's personal space. He's pointing fingers, almost chest stabbing his fingers onto his chest and all that stuff. There's a lot of things going on. That is intimidating, in my opinion. Now, some people don't get it even intimidated with that and all, but that's not the issue. The fact is that physically, Mike Gatting is very close to the umpire, gesticulating thing. So in my opinion, if I was there, I would consider that as a level 3. The other one, I know the circumstances of the other picture, as you see, where McGrath is again with Ramnarish Sawan. Now, I know there was no threat or thing involved, but that just gives you the flavor of what you could expect. You could have a player actually threatening to assault a player, another person. Okay. Now, just to clarify the Mike Gatting and thing, it's a very poor video. It's from a very old time, so just bear with it. So you can see Gatting walks up to the umpire and then just goes very close to him into his personal space. I would call that intimidating. That's an example. Level 4. And that's the specific things is threatening to assault an umpire, making inappropriate and deliberate physical contact with an umpire, physically assaulting a player or any other person, committing any other act of violence. The next video is something that people need to watch carefully. And you can see in the space of 3 balls, the problem rises from a level 1 to a level 4 in a space of 3 balls. So have a look at this video. We'll try to talk through it. So that's the first ball. There is a bit of a dissent with the, wicketkeeper, Mr. Murray, having a few words. And as the bowler went back to his run-up, he had a few things to say to the umpire as well. The umpire then walks up to the captain, Clive Lord, who's at slips. He had some words there, if you can see. And the umpire then walks up to the Captain Clive Lord and tells him about the issue. So that's, there's some dissent in there. So yeah, again, it's all my opinion there. And I don't know what exactly was said. So I would say, let's think about it as level 1 offense, okay? Get the captain involved. It's the next ball. And this is to the new umpires. Why is it a no ball? Any new umpire wants to take or any umpire who wants to.
His back foot is touching the return crease.
That's great. Yeah. So what does he do after that as a result of the call of no ball? Do you see that? Watch the bowler now. Would you agree that that's moved on from level 1 to level 2? Just goes and puts on the bails. And what's the next ball now? That, if you look at the wording of the law, is inappropriate, deliberate contact with the umpire. And that, in my opinion, is level 4. And why do you think it's deliberate? Have a look at the 2 balls he bowled earlier and see where he's bowling from. Almost at the return crease. That's the first ball. And the no ball, because his back foot landed on the return crease anyway. And the third ball, he's right next to the thing. And if you know Colin Croft, if you have watched Colin Croft bowling, he always balls from wide of the crease. So that it's inappropriate and it's deliberate. So that is a level 4. Now, does that clarify the 4 levels of offenses? Give me a thumbs up on your things, please. Great. So you with your colleague have now decided what level the offense is. What next? You need to call time if necessary. Why do you need to call time? The team that is, that the offending team could be the batting side, and the captain's in the dressing room. So you need to call times, stop the play, get the captain on, because we'll see that further what happens there. So you need to call time. Now, what's the effect of calling time? It's very important to understand this. Remember, what's the latest that you could make an appeal? Does anyone remember that?
The start of the run up in when the bowlers bowl in the, so if it's the next over when the run up has started.
Or the call of time.
Yeah.
So if you call time, there's no further appeals will be considered. So that's very important. That's the reason you call time. So leave that in saying, if you do call time, remember that no further appeals would be considered. So if there was an LBW and there was some abuse or something, and there was no appeal, and the appeal comes in after the call of time, it's not considered anymore. Okay. Once the time is called, you request the captain of the offending team to come and speak to you. Just give me a second while I try to get this sorted. Sorry, my IT system is just. Now, captains are responsible for behavior of their players. You know, that's in the spirit of cricket. It's in the law. It's mentioned in law 1.4. It's not the people who are responsible for the behavior of the player or the captains. If you as an umpire decide that the warnings or sanctions are required, you have to advise the captain. It is his job to advise the players of what they need to do. Therefore, you must call in the captain. And if it's necessary, he must be brought onto the field of play. That's if it's the batting side who's the offending side, and if the captain's in the pavilion, you got to get him onto the field of play.
Just before we go any further there, Bala, there's just a couple of questions that have come through in the chat. Is calling dead ball the same as calling time? I'll let you answer that question first.
No. Calling dead ball just stops the play at that time. Calling time is actually stopping the game for the prescribed period of time. So this is the only instance when you actually call time when you don't have an interruption or a interval. You could call a dead ball. The difference again, as I told you, that you could call a dead ball and there could be an appeal later on. That's still valid. Once you call time, the appeals are gone.
Okay, that's great. And the second question we just want to clarify before we move on would be assume that you call time and you need to make note of the time, and as well as especially if it is a level 3 or level 4 offense. No, time is to stop the game completely, because what happens is you're stopping. Now, again, going back to there's something that I expect you to read later on, but let's say you're doing a time match, you're doing the last hour of a match in the thing, and now when you call time, the time stops. You can add that time later on. So in a 50-over match, the play time is stopped. When you call dead ball, the playing time is not stopped yet. You get the difference, the slight difference, the nuances here.
Yeah, so I think the answer to that second question is yes, it is important to make a note of the time if you call time for law 42 reasons.
Yes, you always make note of the time anyway,
Okay.
Because that's what is going to go into your disciplinary report later on. At this time, this happened. And whenever you stop the game, even if it's for a lunch break interval or a tea interval or a drinks break, you note the time. Because you're keeping time. The game is stopped for the time. It's not a PTA. It's not the playing time. Okay. Now, Ashish, I see your question. You have to decide between yourself whether the question is if one umpire thinks it's a equipment abuse level 1 and other a serious dissent level 2, what should the joint decision be? That's up to the 2 umpires on this thing to decide. And whoever thinks, It's up to you both to decide on why it should be level 1 or level 2. And whoever convinces the other one to agree, it's that decision stands. So if you as a team decide that it's level 1, or then you say it's level 1. If you think it's level 2, if both of you have to decide, you don't have to tell them, you talk separately, you don't talk next to the captain. You talk first, decide the level of the offense, and then talk to the captain and say, this is level 1 or level 2. You have to agree within yourself whether it's level 1 or level 2. How you're going to do that, I do not know. It has to be specific things. Okay, so you request the captain of the offending team to come and speak to you. Okay. You tell him the sanctions involved, the different levels of the dissent. And they are, in level 1, if it's the first instance of a problem with behavior by the team, the umpire will advise the captain of the offending team that this is his first and final warning, and any further offenses under the law 42 by any member of the team will result in an award of 5 penalty runs to the other team. So this is a team warning. If the team has already had level 1, 2, or 3, level 1, 2, 3, or 4 incident during the match, umpires will immediately award 5 penalty runs to the other team. So if it's a second offense of any severity, it's automatically 5 penalty runs. Now, there could be an instance that you might not have time to warn the captain. There could be 2 offenses by the same team of the same delivery. And before you had the chance to warn the captain, the second offense has occurred. In that case, you award 5 penalty runs without the warning. An example of that is you have a batsman who gives serious dissent, or a dissent that you consider as level 1. And then as he's walking off, as he reaches the boundary, he chucks his bat across the boundary. So that's 2 instances have occurred of the same delivery before you have the chance to warn the captain. In that case, the second offense will automatically get him 5 penalty runs. For level 2, it's straightforward award of 5 penalty runs to the non-offending team. And you then advise the captain that any level 1 offense after this from any member of the team during the match will immediately result in an award of 5 penalty runs. Level 3, things getting more serious over here. The umpire will advise the captain that the player who committed the level 3 offense is required to be removed from the play for a predetermined period of time. This period is 10 overs in a multi-day match or a thing, or in a limited overs match, it's 1/5 of the total overs the inning was scheduled to contain when it began. So at the start of the inning, what is the overs the innings were supposed to have? So if it's at the start of the inning, of a 50-over inning, you take 1/10 of 50. So it's 10 overs. Now here's why this becomes very important is, think about it now. I'll give you a scenario. You have a 50-over match, okay? After 20 overs, GW strikes in from last week's workshop. And you do your calculations and you reduce, let's say 10 overs, okay? And within like a couple of overs, there's a level 3 offense by the fielding side. So what would be the number of overs that the offending player would have to sit out? In this case, the inning started with a 50-over innings. So it is 1/5 of 50. That's 10 overs. It doesn't matter that the innings is now reduced to a 40-over inning. It doesn't matter. It's what the number of overs per inning was at the start of the inning. Now, in the same match, let's assume that there was another level 3 offense in the second innings. Now, in that case, how much overs is the offending player going to sit out for? In this case, it will be 8 overs because inning started as a 40-over inning. So 1/5 of 40 is 8. Okay, so you need to be very careful about this. It's the number of overs at the start of the innings, not reduced or thing. And once this thing is covered, once you've sent the batsman out, you also award 5 penalty runs to the non-offending team. You again advise the captain that any level 1 offense from any member of the team during the match will immediately result in a award of 5 penalty runs. No substitute is allowed for the player who has been removed. Okay. Now, this is very important now, and I would expect, I'm not going to elaborate this, but I would expect you guys to go and read.
No.
Okay. I'd expect you guys to go and read about the whole issue with the substitutes and everything. I'm not going to go elaborate on that. That's a part of the law. What we are trying to do is we are trying to find out how to implement this law for now. So level 3 offense, how do you signal it? Lift your hand up that way, as shown. And then 10. That's the number of overs. I mean, usually it's just show your thing. For me to remember, I just think of it as 10 overs for 50 and just show the 10.
Quick question, Bala. You've just given the example that in a reduced game at the start of the second innings, it's down to a 40-over game, 40-over innings. Do you still raise 10 fingers?
This is for me to remember. That's it. The 10 is the maximum. So that is for me to remember. That's nothing. It's not. You don't say that 8 over something. That's a signal for a level 3. The 10 is a signal. Is a part of the signal. You don't change the number of fingers. It's just a thing for me. I try to remember things in certain ways. So in this case, the maximum number of overs a batsman or a fielder could be, or a player could be thrown out is 10. So I just remember 10. Now, level 4, the umpire will advise the captain that the player who committed the level 4 offense is required to be removed from the field of play immediately and will take no further part in the match. Again, you'll award 5 penalty runs, and then it's a team warning. It's a warning, a first and final warning for the whole team. And no substitutes allowed for the player who's been removed. And the signal for this is 2 parts of it. First is the waving of the hand. And now you're throwing the batsman out. So it's out. It's not above your head, it's at the shoulder height. Okay. There will be instances when the captain will not agree to listen to what you said. You asked the captain to remove their opening bowler from the game. And he says, there's no way I'm going to take him out. What happens then? If one captain does not agree, then you award the match to the other team, the non-offending team. What happens if both captains, for whatever reason, don't agree to your order of removing a couple of players off the ground? You both says, no, we are not going to remove a player. Say you give a level 4 offense. Say a fight happened between the batsman and the bowler, and you say both of them are at fault and you have to remove both of them. And both captains disagree. If that scenario happens, then stop the game, get the fielders out of the play. Match will be considered abandoned. Always record what happened and what actions were taken. We did that when the incident happened. We recorded what the incident was, the time and everything, and then you also record once you've spoken to the captain and put in the sanctions in place. You then record what actions were taken, and this becomes vital when you are at the end of the game, by sit with your colleague and write your disciplinary report. Both of you need to. It's not just one of you recording the incident. Both of you need to record it, and both of you need to record it exactly the same on the spot, because these are all serious instances. And when it comes to disciplinary, you need to be singing of the same hymn sheet. Now, if you don't record it, no matter how good you think your memory is, you're going to have some differences between the two people. And that's not acceptable in the disciplinary things. You need to know exactly what's happening when you write the disciplinary report, and you need to record everything that happens, so that when you're asked, either individually or as a pair by the disciplinary committee, you should be able to tell exactly what happens, because you've already had it recorded. And once all the actions are completed, as in removing the player or awarding the 5 penalty runs, whatever it is, once all that is done, you call play, and that's it. Now, I'm not going into detail about the reporting process and all that stuff. I think that's after match, but this is the process on field. Is there any questions?
Yes,
Very
Bala.
interesting. Sorry. Sorry, Rich, go ahead.
Just one thing, Bala. Removing a player from the fielding side is all well and good. How does one remove a player from the batting side if he's the one who's committed the offence?
You call the captain and ask him to take the batsman off the thing.
And your batsman is allowed to come in to replace him.
Yes.
And if the total number of wickets has reached 9 and he's the last man in, and those 10, that period of time hasn't ended, is he then still allowed to come back?
No, that's the end of the match.
That's the innings over. All right, yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
That's cool. Cheers, thank you very much.
However, if it's for level 3, if he's not able to come back because all the wickets have fallen and he's still under the sanctioned time, he'll be recorded as, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, he'll be recorded as retired, not out.
You're on mute there, Peter.
And it's level 4.
Sorry, if its suspension is level 4, it's recorded as a wicket with dismissal, retired, out.
No, I'm talking of level 3.
Oh, do apologize, Bala, I have it here.
Level 3 is retired, not out. Level 4 is retired, out.
Sorry. If the suspension is for a number of overs, record the occurrence as retired, not out. Draw a single line, pencil line across the batsman's runs section to note where the innings was interrupted, and split the next ball of wickets box with a vertical line. Record the retirement in the left part of the split box, leaving the right side for the next follow wicket.
So if it's level 3, and if he's not able to bat again, it's retired, not out.
Retired,
it's level 4, it's retired, out.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's fine, lads. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Are there any more questions for Bala?
Okay, Kieran has just raised a question. What happens if you cannot agree with your partner what the level of the offence is? Are we assuming that the umpires are in agreement with each other?
You have to agree. One of you has to step back.
If I can give you and possibly give an example there, Bala. We'll use the Jason Roy example for the semi-final. I would personally deem that as level 2. Some umpires might deem that as level 1. Would you always veer on the higher level or the lower level?
Again, I cannot tell you without the thing, but I would try to be, Okay, if two umpires are having a disagreement, then each presents his case to each other. But if they have a doubt whether it's level 1 or level 2, I mean, both don't know whether it's a level 1 or level 2, I would go for the lower one. But that's my opinion again. So
it's based on the, to finish that, or how I perceive your leaving that is, it is based on the consultation between the two umpires. At the end of the day, you will always come to a resolution. I think we're all sensible enough.
See, there's a guidance card that is given to you for Law 42. And that contains, I hope Peter is going to have it printed by sometime next week or something. But that details what are the offenses and what are the sanctions of level 1 and level 2 and level 3. And you try to fit what happened onto onto the what is specified by law. Fall back onto the law. That's the best advice you can give. So if you think it's dissent, you will have to have a reason to say that it is serious dissent. Like, for example, if it's just an abuse as he's walking out, abuse of his equipment, you know that it's level 1. The borderlines are very rare. So you will be able to easily fit something either into level 1 or level 2 based on what's in the law. So that's up to the two umpires to decide on the day. I'm sure there is a way that you could come up to an agreement that this is either level 1 or level 2.
Everybody happy?
Sorry, hi, Vikram here. I've got a question here. Let's assume fielder first innings of the match, 50 overs match, commits a level 3 offense in the 42nd over, and he is sent out for 10 overs, but there is no 10 overs in the innings. And he is supposed to open the second, he's the opening batsman in the second innings. So will he have to sit out for those 2 overs at the beginning of the next innings because he would have spent 8 here plus 2 overs there? Would that?
That's correct. That's correct, Vikram. But as I said, this particular workshop is more towards how to implement the law. And I would expect you guys to actually read through the law. There's a lot of smaller things that I haven't covered through in this thing. But what you said is correct. If he's out of the match for those particular number of overs that you've calculated. So if he's covered those penalty overs in the first, he's covered a certain number of penalty in the first innings, and he's got outstanding penalty. He has to wait for the whole penalty to complete before he can get back into the match.
Sure, Bala.
And there's no, and unlike the penalty times for fielder's absence, there's no such thing as fall of 5 wickets or something like that.
Yeah.
So let's say if he has, I think I answered that with Richard over here. Let's say he last over of the match or last but 1 over of the match. You say you give a sanction to one of the players. So he finishes 1 over in the first innings, and he has to wait out for 9 overs in the second innings. And let's assume that 9 wickets fall in the first innings, in the 9 overs. He still can't come into bat.
Yep.
So innings is finished.
Yep. Sure, Bala. Thank you very much.
Difference between dissent and intimidation, again, that is something that is very, as Will said, that's very subjective, and it's very difficult to go on hypothetical situations. You have to be on the spot. You have to be there on the ground in middle of a situation to decide whether it's dissent or intimidation.
The one thing that I would add to that is, if you feel it's worth even a discussion, it would and you're even discussing whether or not it's a level 1 or level 2 and level 2. It is your duty to report it. The reason that we need to be consistent is if that same player does the same the following week, we should be applying the same standard from one match to the next.
The thing is, I'll actually add something to that. It's not your duty. It's required by law that you report any offense under law 42. Anything that you put under the field of play, you report it. If you have said level 1 offense, if you have decided to give something of level 1 offense, you have to report it, and it's as per law. It's nothing to do with duty. It is the law. You have to do it. Even if it's just a team warning, even if it's a level 1 offense that you just give warning and nothing happens after that, you still have to report it.
Is everybody happy?
Now, what I'll be doing is I'll be sending over a PDF with these steps on the chat, or I'll send it to Tony if you can send it on the email later on. But if you want, you can print it out and put it into your pocket or put it into your bag for you to follow the steps when you.
Okay. Bala, I'd like to thank you very much. It was precise.
Can we put up the disciplinary report form just for a minute so we can see what it looks like?
Yep. Joe, go ahead. I'll just try to get the report first.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was precise and very clear. There was no misunderstanding. But as you say, you must read the rule. You must read the rule. You must read the rule. Not just once, not just twice.
The law, you mean, Joe?
Hopefully the law, Mr. Connolly.
Sorry?
The law.
Hopefully the law, not the rule.
This bit here, so I know what I'm talking about. But the other thing, though, that you have to think it happens in other sports. You don't want to be a gotcha man. You don't want to be waiting to write a report. You want to make a name for yourself. You know, occasionally in some of these matches, when you get experience, a word in the ear of the player might stop it completely before it goes any further. But you need experience to know that, because you need to know who you're talking to. But I thank everybody for attending, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. It was very clear. Thank you. Thanks, Bala. Now, Bala's going to put up something, isn't he?
I'm going to put up the actual report.
Yeah.
Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the report form, which, as Bala and Will pointed out, if you invoke any provision of Law 42, even for a very minor level 1 offence, you have to make a report, which comes to me first, and then I'll pass it on to the Cricket Leinster Disciplinary Committee. So this is page 1 of the report, which is pretty straightforward. It's just the factual details. So it's which competition it was, what division of the league or what cup, who the 2 teams were, the date, who the umpires were, a reserve umpire if there was, some higher division games there might be a 3rd umpire, which team offended, the name of the offending captain, because again, as Bala said, the captain is responsible for the behaviour of his players, then the individual offending players, 1, 2, 3 more if possible, if necessary, sorry.
You've gone on mute there, Tony.
Sorry, yeah, no, I hadn't said anything. So first thing, there's state of game when the incident occurred. So that's just to put some context on the thing. Sometimes the game has been played in very good spirit and everybody's having a good time, and then just something happens. Other times there's a bad-tempered game where there are niggles between the 2 teams that flare up into something. So it's just to give an idea of the atmosphere, whether it's an isolated incident or whether it's the thing that goes over the top. So that's what's in the state of game. Then offence, which is C notes, that's the what happened. And again, you record the exact details of when it happened and what happened, and you try and keep a concise description, but a clear description of what happened there. Then action taken, that's what you did. So that you spoke to the captain, you advised the captain, you imposed 5 penalty runs, whatever you did. Then any other necessary comments. And then down the bottom, there's spaces for signatures. Now, again, there are guidance notes then on the following pages after that, on page 3 and 4. So page 3, if somebody can scroll up there, is just a quick summary of Law 42 offences again. And it says you must submit a disciplinary report. Then And there was a question there about can you do it retrospectively? Whether or not Law 42 was used to impose on-field sanctions, if something untoward happened, it should be reported. And just because you didn't do what you're supposed to do under Law 42, or say something happens in the tea room in the innings break, or something happens immediately after the game, or something happens across the boundary with a spectator and a player or something like that, which isn't directly part of the game, it should still be reported, even if it's not covered by Law 42, or even if you didn't use the Law 42 protocol on field at the time. So there's guidance there for that as well. One of the more serious incidents that happened last year was a player confronting an umpire in the tea room. So it wasn't an on-field incident at all, but that needed to be reported nonetheless. So things like that, or things involving spectators, need to be reported as well. So even if it's not covered by Law 42, or if you feel in retrospect maybe you should have done something on Law 42 but you didn't at the time, the incident should still be reported. You know, it's an issue for the Cricket Leinster Disciplinary Committee to sort out the rights and wrongs of it. And as Will said, and as Bala said, you know, it's important to report these things, because if a particular player has a pattern of behaviour, or if a particular club has a pattern of behaviour, that needs to be called to account. You know, we deal with these things in isolation. You might umpire a club once or twice in a season, but if they're doing this week in, week out, you know, it's an issue. Or again, with a particular captain, because the captains are responsible. So even if no particular player from a team offends seriously, if every week it's a player from a particular team from a particular club and the captain is failing to control those players, then there could potentially be a problem with that captain, which needs to be taken in hand. Maybe he just needs a quiet word to help him with his duties, but nonetheless, it's important to report all these things. So if anything happens under Law 42 or anything else which you consider that you should have reported at the time, or something that is not covered by Law 42 but nonetheless is in breach of these other disciplinary guidelines, then fill in the report form, send it to me. I'll pass it on to the Cricket Leinster Disciplinary Committee, and they will decide what is the appropriate action. And one of the last things it says there on page 4 is, don't let an apology from a player influence you whether or not you make a report. You need to make the report. Now, if it's a minor offence and the player is genuinely remorseful, by all means, put it into the report that the player said he was sorry. That's relevant, but it shouldn't stop you from making the report in the first place. So just, you know, send in the reports, please. It's in the interest of the game, it's in the interests of cricket, it's in the interest of all the players and the clubs, and it's in the interest of all your colleagues as umpires. Okay, and if you have any questions or queries about a form, about an incident, when you're filling in the form, get on to me and I'll hope to advise you on it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tony. That was quite detailed. And look, as Tony signed off, we're here to answer any questions. So if you're one of the new umpires, reach out to your mentor if you're having any problems with reports. If you're one of the established umpires, reach out to Tony, reach out to your colleague. There'll always be someone who's willing to help.
Hi, do we have any mentor-mentee list ready?
That'll be coming out to you directly on a deep. It's not part of this call.
Thanks, Will.
No worries.
Right, have we finished?
Yep.
Okay, thanks very much for everybody who attended. Thanks.